This is Defiance Daily Dispatches for the Defiant. We have a big episode for you tonight, folks, because Donald Trump is out of his depth across the board. We're going to start tonight by talking about the states that are fighting back against his failing effort to hijack the midterm elections. And we're going to tell you about the one state that you need to be paying attention to tonight, because it might be your best harbinger of what's going to happen in November in this country. And then we're going to talk about MAGA and how Donald Trump's so-called base is starting to look a little bit more like quicksand because of all of the people inside the MAGA movement who are defecting. And that situation got worse for Donald Trump this week, showing he's way out of his depth when it comes to trying to rally his supporters. And then finally, we're going to talk today about the breaking news on Iran, because moments ago, it became another Taco Tuesday with Donald Trump, who over the past 48 hours had been threatening to resume the war with Iran, deciding that he was instead going to indefinitely extend the negotiation period. Now, we don't say Taco Tuesday derisively. We're not hoping that Donald Trump takes on the war and continues this unnecessary conflict, but we're going to tell you today why Donald Trump's rhetoric yet again contradicts what he had said days before, and why this Taco Tuesday may turn into a Taco Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. More on that, including with our special guest today, Paul Rieckhoff, who's the founder and CEO of Independent Veterans of America and a leading voice on national security and veterans issues. Now, before we go into our program today, let me say this. Go check out defiance.org. If you are not yet a member, please consider joining. Every single dollar that goes to defiance.org goes into the fight to counter Donald Trump's abuses of power, and it keeps us on the air every single night. Again, not just funding this program, but funding efforts that we announce every single Wednesday on our weekly mission brief to counter those abuses of power. So tune in tomorrow night at 5 p.m. Eastern to find out what we are announcing this week to protect democracy and the rule of law in this country. Now, we start tonight in the state of Virginia, where a ballot measure has turned into a fight over the control of Congress. Voters tonight in Virginia are deciding whether or not to approve new congressional maps that could shift the balance of power in the House of Representatives. Now, this comes after Donald Trump pushed Republican states last year to start redrawing their congressional maps to lock in more seats. That's right. Donald Trump wanted to do what's called off-cycle gerrymandering. Let me give you some context. Every 10 years, a census happens in this country. And based on the census, states around the country decide how big their congressional districts need to be to adjust for changes in the population. Donald Trump last year said, hey, listen, red states, I want you to redraw the lines now because I want you to draw more districts so I get more Republican MAGA people in Congress. Some of those Republican states pushed back and said, that's unethical. We're not going to do that. A number of them followed suit. States like Texas gladly accepted the president's challenge and redistricted to give him more seats in Congress. Well, the Democrats, they didn't take that. They didn't take that sitting down, at least. They stood up and said, we're not going to allow this to happen. Two can play at that game. And Virginia is one of the key states that has responded. We go to WTVR CBS 6 to take a look at what voters are deciding to do in that state.
On this Tuesday, all eyes on the Commonwealth. This is a special day for Virginia. A special election for a single issue is very rare here. The last time it happened was back in 1956, and right now, 4 congressional Republicans are fighting to keep their jobs. I spoke to Dr. Bob Holsworth, our political analyst, about this constitutional amendment.
In fact, the referendum language from put in by the Democrats suggests that this is an issue of fairness, and the Republicans saying, oh, yeah, it's an issue of fairness, but the fairness is on the side of no.
This is a look at the current congressional map versus the one you will vote on today. According to the Virginia Public Access Project, nearly 1.4 million people have already cast ballots in early voting. With razor-slim margins in the House of Representatives, your vote could help decide which party controls Congress.
I'm going to be 42 this year. I haven't missed a vote in the primary or the election since I was able to vote. So I feel like it's my duty to get out there and vote.
I spoke to voters here at Quioccasin Middle School in Henrico County.
I voted no. I don't look at what other states and what everybody else is doing. I don't look at this. I don't look at that. I don't think we need to change maps around or anything. I think we need to unite.
You said you voted yes.
Yes.
Why did you vote yes today?
Because we had enough of his shenanigans, and it's time to go ahead and get him out. I'm sorry. He has to go.
So what's next? The question now, if the map passes, is this really a done deal? Dr. Bob says there are pending lawsuits in the Virginia Supreme Court scheduled to hold a hearing on the matter in just 2 days. In Henrico County, I'm Brendan King, CBS 6 News.
If this measure passes, Democrats could gain as many as 4 additional seats from Virginia alone. And importantly, the measure that the Democrats have put forward in the state of Virginia includes a snapback mechanism. In other words, Democrats have said, we are not gerrymandering the seat forever. It will snap back after several years, once, presumably, the threat of a Donald Trump administration and his efforts to gerrymander the nation are gone. Donald Trump is now feeling the heat. Here he is on a tele-rally call that was held last night with House Speaker Mike Johnson.
What they're going to be doing with this referendum. If the Democrats, look, if they get additional House seats, at some point, if they get these additional seats, they're going to be making changes at the federal level.
Making changes at the federal level, exactly what Democrats are hoping will happen if they retake the House of Representatives and possibly the Senate this fall. So, look, this is the problem Donald Trump consistently runs into. He can lean on states. He can try to steer the process and rig the system in his favor, but he doesn't control that process. And we are seeing the pushback go beyond the state of Virginia. In Hawaii, lawmakers are going after Citizens United versus the FEC, that ruling that opened the door to unlimited corporate money in elections and helped fuel Trump's rise. The proposal would redefine corporation as artificial persons under state law and strip them of the ability to spend money to influence elections. Now, if that passes, it could effectively shut down corporate-funded political spending in the state. And in Montana, voters are moving in a similar direction through another ballot initiative. Earlier this month, the state Supreme Court declared the way for a measure known as, quote, the Montana Plan to move forward after business groups tried to block it. That proposal would ban corporations from spending money on candidates or ballot issues altogether. This fight by Hawaii and Montana is not a fringe issue. According to a national YouGov survey last fall, nearly 80% of Americans across both parties already believe corporate spending in elections leads to corruption or the appearance of corruption. So while Donald Trump tries to reshape elections from the very top, the states are listening to the people and trying to set their own rules. I want to bring in my Defiance.org co-founder, Xander Schultz. Xander, I said at the top that what happens in Virginia tonight is really going to be a harbinger of what comes in November, but in 2 ways. One, if this measure passes, it shows that in a purple state like Virginia, the Democratic Party is winning over independents, and also the math changes because the Democrats presumably will have a 4-seat advantage that they didn't have before.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'd kept a close eye on when California was doing this, but you're right. In Virginia, it's a different story. It actually shows that the party is either becoming more tactical and competent or more popular within a purple state like that, which is either way, it's a great sign. It's not a great spot to be in as a democracy, though. Democracies rely on forbearance, which is like not using every tool in your tool chest to gain an advantage. And now we are, unfortunately, this is like a rot our democracy already had that Trump is exploiting, right, in the way that he forced these states or pressured these states to redistrict. There's so many, you and I don't get to talk about the amazing ways our system could function too often. Eric Holder's out there pushing for the National Redistricting Coalition, which is looking for like independent citizen redistricting in a fair way. And so I think it's really brilliant by the Democrats. I think it's a good sign. I love the sunset component of this, which says, look, we're only doing this as long as we need to so we can keep a democracy, and then we're going to keep pushing for a free and fair democracy. But there are really great ways that our districts could be, our district lines could be drawn that are out there. And I hope that one day you and I are talking about the system writ large embracing those styles.
I agree with you, man. I mean, I got to say, I'm no fan of gerrymandering. In fact, I think it's disgusting. And in any other circumstance, I would vehemently oppose what is happening in Virginia, were it not for the fact that the president of the United States instigated all of these states to do off-cycle gerrymandering. I mean, he was basically
off-cycle gerrymandering. It's so bizarre. Like that point, it's really important you point that out.
Yeah, and Donald Trump was basically banking on the morality of his opponents. He was banking that he is less moral than his opponents. And the Democrats, I feel like, have run circles around him by saying we are more moral because we think this is wrong. And that's why we're going to set a sunset provision.
That's why we're not going to codify it. Totally.
Yeah, this shouldn't continue. I got to feel like, I wonder, Xander, if you think in the long run, this might increase the leverage Democrats have in going to the table with national Republicans and saying, why don't we agree, instead of continuing to escalate in this fashion, why don't we agree to lay down our arms together?
Yes.
Our state will vote on a ballot measure to get rid of this and to put these independent commissions in place. If your state does the same thing, and we all become hyper competitive again, so that there are elections that matter that aren't just decided in the primaries.
I'd love to see it. I mean, I was hoping for similar things to happen after January 6th around executive power. And you were one of the people running around Washington, pushing the parties to say, hey, this just happened. Can we limit executive power in these ways as we've seen it, exploited recently? And that didn't happen. So I don't know how high my hopes could be on Washington, but I totally agree. I hope, in general, taking a step back for a second, that all of this allows us to re-examine our processes, because now we've had this mischievous man in the White House exploiting all of the holes he can. Let's commit as a country and as individuals to try to make our democracy less fragile. You can do that through independent redistricting. You can do that through expanding the House, which you and I have talked about before, and getting the House back to its intended size, which is, each representative covering about 30,000 people, so they can actually be a representative of their community and know a lot of their community members. They're essentially like the size of early state senators at this point. And so there's a bunch of ways we can reform our system. And I think my highest hope, really, Miles, and maybe that is the work of Defiance after we emerge victorious, crossing my fingers from this moment, is that we get to do some of that work with some serious energy behind it.
Well, there it is. Anders laid out the future mission, the 5-year plan. The 5-year plan is taking shape. It's taking shape. I think we're well on our way, Xander. If our next story is any indicator, Donald Trump is losing the support that he needs, and that doesn't pair well with the resistance he's facing in the states, because he is losing ground with the core supporters that helped him win the presidency twice. Now, on this program, we've seen our fair share of former sycophants rebuking Donald Trump. And naturally, that is met with hesitancy. But this week, we have been seeing something we almost never see in MAGA world: outright apologizing, outright admissions that people who helped Donald Trump win his seat back in the White House were wrong. Let's start with Tucker Carlson, one of Donald Trump's most influential backers. Okay, keep in mind, Tucker Carlson has 17 million followers on X alone, tens of millions of followers around the country. And Carlson is now openly apologizing for his role in helping get Donald Trump reelected. Here he is on his podcast yesterday.
Because you and I and everyone else who supported him, you wrote speeches for him, I campaigned for him. I mean, we're implicated in this for sure.
Yes.
It's not enough to say, well, I changed my mind, or like, oh, this is bad, I'm out. It's like, in very small ways, but in real ways, you and me and millions of people like us are the reason this is happening right now.
Yes.
So I do think it's like a moment to wrestle with our own consciences. We'll be tormented by it for a long time. I will be. And I want to say I'm sorry for misleading people, and it was not intentional. That's all I'll say. But anyway, the question does present itself immediately, like, what is this? Was this always the plan? You don't want to be a conspiracy nut, but like clearly there were signs of low character. We knew that. Yes.
Pretty remarkable. That other person that Tucker was talking to is Buckley Carlson, his brother, who also happened to have been a Trump speechwriter. Now, this is not just limited to MAGA elites that are breaking with the Trump administration. It's not just people like Tucker Carlson who are mad that Donald Trump went back on his pledge of no more forever wars. In fact, there are stories across the country, anecdotes everywhere of MAGA signs coming down in the neighborhood, people throwing away their red caps. I see it when I drive to the grocery store. The houses that had Trump signs up, they don't have those signs up anymore. Take a look at this caller who rang into C-SPAN this week.
I am a registered Republican. My dad was the president of American Pipeliners Association, so I came by it rather naturally. Voted for the president, supported him, but I really want to apologize. I mean, I'm looking at this awful picture of the Obamas. What an embarrassment to our country. All this man does is tell lies. He is not worthy of the presidency. He takes bribes blatantly, and now he's being a racist blatantly. They were supposed to deport the dangerous criminals. They were not supposed to go after small children, storm schools, bring terror upon, the little kids and the women and children, not just the immigrants in the school. All the children are scared. This is not a decent man. This is not an honest man. He openly takes bribes. He's pathetic as a president, and I just want to apologize to everybody in the country for supporting this rotten man.
John, did you vote for him in all 3 elections?
I did. I was sucked into the stupidity of creating jobs, and there are no more jobs in New Mexico. Things are worse than they were before. You cannot find a primary care physician.
Now, just to flag, that was actually a few weeks ago that clip happened, but it's representative of something we are seeing around the country. These aren't pundits. These are voters. You're seeing it across social media. You are importantly seeing it in Donald Trump's own comments on Truth Social. That bastion of MAGA supporters is now, according to an analysis from the New York Times, regularly repudiating the president in his own comments, in his own platform. Not exactly a lefty platform out there, Truth Social. That's an indicator of what's happening. Now, the big question becomes, what do we do about these voters? What do we do about these folks who are repudiating the MAGA movement? Do we accept their apology? Do we try to throw it in their faces that they supported Donald Trump? What do we do next? I want to bring back to the conversation my Defiance.org co-founder, Xander Schultz. Xander, I think you know where I stand on that question about what we do with those voters who defect, but give me your take. You're on mute.
There we go. We can't break with tradition. I think I feel very differently about Tucker Carlson than I do the voter. I think the Tucker thing's important in a different way to me. I think Tucker's an opportunist and a survivalist, and he's going to go wherever he thinks there's a market opportunity to go. So I don't trust Tucker, but I do think Tucker is exceptional at understanding the pulse of MAGA world. And kind of in my former life, I used to look at what the Kochs were doing in political organizing so I could copy that because they were so freaking good at it. I think it's really important we listen to people like Tucker because he understands the narratives. He understands where people are heading. He understands the narratives, and the Democratic Party should be listening to folks like Tucker a lot right now as they start to break with him. So Tucker's value to me is as just a kind of evidence on his really good understanding on where voters are at on that side. The voters, on the other hand, we should be, keeping our arms as wide open as possible for these folks. And if you don't want to, try to remember the ways that you distrust our system currently, whether that's our healthcare or our food or Washington in general, the corruption there, or our finance industry. There are so many ways this system felt like it was letting people down. And the draw to an outsider, whether it be Bernie for me or Trump for another, was really, really strong. And most of the folks that I know, that was the energy behind them, was what they didn't want to have, not necessarily what they wanted to have. I know it was easy to zone in on the racists backing Trump in that part of the coalition. But my experience, at least after bouncing around a lot of the country, was exactly what this gentleman pointed out. He's like, I just saw jobs disappearing in my state. This guy said he was going to do something about it. I was wrong. And it's hard to come back into another space if you don't feel like you're going to be accepted. And so that's a big, big part of our job for voters, for everyday people who are hoping to get something different. Because there's a lot of reasons to hope for something different in this country these days.
And I think people need to realize there is value in agreeing to disagree. You can say to a MAGA voter, hey, come on over. The water's warm. Let's get rid of this guy. Let's get rid of his allies. And realize they're probably going to vote for folks or support issues that you still don't agree with. That's not the conversation right now. The conversation is, how do we get this extremist movement out of our politics? And then we can go back to agreeing to disagree. And so I share the sentiment, Xander. We have to be big tent. We have to have our arms open. We have to encourage those voters to come over. If we don't, we deserve to lose. If we don't, we deserve to lose. Any lifelong Democrat listening to this who thinks we can beat Donald Trump and Donald Trump's movement by only appealing to the left, then I want you to be ready to lose again, because that's how the man became president. Don't tell me the Democratic Party had a strategy. Do not tell me. Do not come up with excuses each time and say, well, it was this 100%. Or it was that, or it was Joe Biden. No, you didn't win because you didn't build a big enough coalition, period. That's it. That's all the political analysis you need. You don't need a goddamn PhD in political science to know you didn't build a big enough coalition. So now you need to listen. If you want to beat the guy, you got to build a bigger coalition. These people are running at you in droves. They are fleeing this movement. Open your arms, bring them in, and we will win and we will retake this country. That's the message I want people to remember. Go ahead, Xander.
And if you forget for a second that Trump's a charlatan and an evil guy and manipulating people, and look at the kind of issues he identified that were being left underserved in our country, I do think there's huge wins to be had with a lot of that coalition. It was in some ways a pro-democracy coalition. They were being lied to about Stop the Steal, but they wanted to see a democratic process that worked. It's hard to imagine, to the extent that these people's information environment is very different than ours too, and how much it feels obvious what we cover oftentimes, like the stolen election is a lie. In their ecosystem, it felt like there was mountains of evidence that it was true. So try to keep that in mind. Also, it's pro-democracy. It was a pro-American labor movement where they were trying to get jobs back and protect American workers. There are things within here, and it's an anti-corruption movement in a lot of ways, like the drain the swamp stuff. I think actually this group with the right messengers, and you're 100% right, Miles, like the Democratic Party just failed to be the right messengers to see those pieces of it. Instead, there was, what was Hillary's quote? What'd she call them? Deplorables. Like, instead of seeing you're right, there's too much corruption, American workers are being failed, and we've got to address some of our biggest issues around institutional corruption. Instead of doing that, they just failed to do that. They failed to provide an alternative for that. And so I think, Miles, not only do we have the potential to survive this moment and defeat authoritarianism, but I think there's some massive, massive wins to be had in the coming years if we approach this conversation correctly.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's one other area, Xander, where I think we should zoom in a little bit, because it's getting extraordinary to see the level with which people are breaking from Donald Trump. I won't name the person. I've got someone very close to our family who has been a stalwart supporter of Donald Trump, which was, of course, distressing to me as he started to target our family, as we said, well, wait a second. If there's anything that would get you to break from this guy, surely it's the fact that he's trying to throw me into prison, right? Well, it's terrible what he's doing to you. I can't possibly support it. It's awful. Our heart breaks for you. It's the issues that I care about, right? So even that didn't get them to break. But guess what, Xander? This individual was on the phone with us not long ago talking about how Candace Owens has the most compelling case for why Donald Trump is corrupt and needs to go. And you know what? I didn't even get upset. I said, you know what? If Candace Owens convinced you to break away from this guy, I'll take it. I will take it. And we're seeing things like that across the board. Now, Candace Owens, known conspiracy theorist, lives on the fringes of conspiracy theory. And so that's why I want to handle this next one a little bit delicately. But some of Trump's supporters are beginning to question one of the defining moments of his campaign for the presidency, the assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania. And according to new reporting, a growing number of MAGA voices are now claiming, without evidence, that the shooting was staged. Some saying that it was a cover-up. Others are filling in the gaps with their own theories. So here's CNN with a breakdown of this, and then I want to get your reaction, Xander, on the other side.
Former Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeting 3 times in less than 24 hours, raising questions about the 2024 assassination attempt of President Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania, which was so crucial to that election, including asking, quote, President Trump of all people should be leading the charge. Why isn't he? And she adds, why the cover-up? The former Trump ally joining a growing list of conservatives raising similar questions and demanding answers. Tony O'Sullivan is out front.
But over the last few weeks, as many are speaking out against the Iran war.
Just admit you staged it in Butler. It was the heat of the campaign. People do crazy things in campaigns.
Prominent people who supported Trump's re-election campaign, like comedian Tim Dillon, have started to express doubts about what happened in Butler that day. Trump survived, but Corey Comparator, who was standing in the crowd behind him, died.
Now, of course, a real person died, and that's terrible. R.I.P. And they should say that in high stakes things like this, stuff like that happens.
Joe, thanks a lot for joining us.
Butler conspiracy theories really started to pick up in the MAGA world after Joe Kent appeared on the Tucker Carlson show last month. Kent was a high-ranking intelligence official who resigned in protest over the Iran war.
I mean, we still don't know what happened in Butler. We don't know what happened with Charlie Kirk. And by no means am I saying, like, the Israelis did this or any of that, but I'm saying there's a lot of unanswered questions there.
Trisha Hope, who is a Trump delegate at the RNC in 2024, has been vocal online about her doubts, posting, since the attempt on his life, Trump has shown no interest in investigating what really happened. He never mentions it. It's as if it never happened, except when he tells us he took a bullet for us. Marjorie Taylor Greene has shared Trisha's post, and she added over the weekend, I'm not calling the Butler assassination a hoax, but there are a lot of questions that deserve public answers.
The far more significant story involves the government, the DOJ, and the FBI, which have hidden from the public what they know about Thomas Crooks.
Xander, I think that's as compelling as anything, is if his supporters are questioning the very thing that they think got him reelected, that's a sign that that MAGA base is indeed becoming quicksand.
Yeah, it feels like, I don't know where I heard this. Like, once you see the illusion break in a magic show, like the illusion breaks everywhere. It's just like your suspended disbelief is gone. And it feels like that's starting to happen. Whether it was like the Epstein was the first crack and then the Iran war after that. And then somewhere in that, this illusion's broken. And now they can see him for the fraud he is, which is great. It's great. And look, like, I think, in terms of people questioning the shooting, it just shows like there's zero trust in the Trump administration. There's zero trust in Trump. He's been, someone who has done everything all the way up to led a domestic terrorism attack against our capital. So why would you trust, that he wouldn't be a bad actor in, any other nefarious way?
Well, we close tonight, Xander, with our third story that gets exactly to that. Is Donald Trump being a bad actor and being out of his depth? This morning, Trump went on television And he insisted the United States was on track to strike what he called a great deal with Iran. He said that Iran had no choice and that the talks were moving forward. But behind the scenes, that was not true. Iran never committed to those talks, and now they have made it official. They're not coming. One major holdup cited was an internal dispute in Tehran to participate in the talks as long as a U.S. naval blockade on Iranian ports continues, according to Axios. That decision forced J.D. Vance to cancel his trip to Pakistan entirely after it had first been delayed and then postponed indefinitely when Iran refused to participate in the talks. Now, Vance's cancellation comes on top of other damning reporting that underscores just how much Trump is lacking in control when it comes to Iran. The New Republic reports that Chief of Staff Susie Wiles called an emergency meeting with Republican strategists yesterday as concerns grew over the political and economic fallout from the war. Wiles held this session at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel, organized alongside her former deputy, James Blair, who has been dispatched from the White House away from his day-to-day duties and to a full-time focus on damage control around the midterm elections. Now, surely Susie Wiles got a mouthful from those Republican strategists yesterday on the handling of the war and rising gas prices and the cost of living pressure on voters. Reporting also shows that these meetings were so tightly controlled with sensitive information that attendees were required to sign non-disclosure agreements. That's why we probably haven't seen reporting since that meeting happened. Now, this is what's happening behind the scenes. While Trump is out there talking about the great deal with Iran that's being negotiated, his own team is scrambling to contain the political damage. Now, moments before we went on the air, as I said at the top, it seemed that Trump was extending the ceasefire indefinitely until talks between the two countries are concluded. As a reminder, Trump said just yesterday that he would not extend the deadline. It would not be extended, that he was ready to commence bombing and that the military was eager to continue bombing. But as my friend Jim Acosta said about an hour ago, it's another Taco Tuesday because Donald Trump has decided not to go forward with that plan. He's granting an extension, as he says, because Iran's government is seriously fractured and he wants to give Iranian officials more time to come up with a unified proposal. Did Donald Trump realize he was in over his head, or is this just a five-dimensional chess move, the kind we always hear about from his supporters? Here to discuss the most recent developments with the Iran war and Donald Trump's scramble for control is our friend Paul Rieckhoff, founder and CEO of Independent Veterans of America. Paul, I want to get your reaction to that news. What do you make of it? Is this was this Donald Trump's plan all along to continue the ceasefire, or did he realize the Iranians weren't going to come to the table and he's terrified to continue bombing because of the political and economic consequences?
Do we have a taco sponsor? Can we make that happen? I mean, Taco Tuesday I'm all in on this. This is fun. Look, can I just start by saying he's such a fucking drama queen. Like that's really what this is about like this captivating next season of what will happen in Iran. Like he's very good at this, right?
He's a TV guy, totally.
He's very good at creating false deadlines. I'm headed to CNN in a little while, right? They probably have a little ticker in the corner that's like minutes till the end of the deadline ceasefire, right? And then what does he do? He just keeps pushing the goalpost back, which makes it look like he has control and he's controlling the tempo. You know, in the military, there's the old saying, don't let the enemy control the tempo. And the reality is, despite what he says about victory, the enemy is controlling the tempo because the enemy controls the Strait of Hormuz, right? And Iran has the ability to disrupt the global oil market with one missile, right? Because you don't have to have the most powerful military in the world to hit one ship, drive up insurance costs, make it untenable, and scare everybody enough to stop moving ships. And now I checked it, oil's at almost $100 a barrel. So, Trump has started this. The Iranians aren't going to let him finish it. And in the meantime, it's like the world's gas station is being held hostage by both of them, really, right? I mean, to be fair, the regime is not a good actor here as well. But I was on Bill Maher last week debating Douglas Murray, who apparently outside of Pete Hegseth is the only guy who thinks this is a victory, right? But the regime is still in place. The Strait of Hormuz is not open. They still got military capacity, right? I mean, by any measurement that even they put, and by the way, sorry, I forgot, the enriched uranium is also not secured. So the big question we should be asking is, where the hell's the uranium? Do you know where that is, Donald? Because that's supposedly the number one threat that we were there to eliminate, and it doesn't look like we have. So yeah, Taco Tuesday is a good one. We got to get a sponsor and get ready for more.
This episode officially sponsored by Taco Bell. Every time I say that, our lawyers
we can do better than that. We can do better than Taco Bell.
Something about Taco Bell. Somebody told me I can never get this out of my head. Somebody told me that no matter what you get at Taco Bell, it tastes like Taco Bell. Right? It all tastes kind of the same. Once I got that in my head, I could never get it out. And now it's true, right?
Might as well go with the cheapest thing on the menu.
Kind of all tastes like bean burrito, like with a little bit of crunch in it, right?
Yeah. They've nailed that. They've nailed that flavor / texture.
I ate a lot of Taco Bell in my day, man.
Paul, I was saying maybe as recent as 6 weeks ago, we've just got to win the midterms. There's no point in organizing the current members of Congress because there's just folks that you can't move to be a check on Trump's power. We just did a segment at the top of this show where Tucker Carlson's speaking out against him. We covered Candace Owens speaking out against him. Are you seeing kind of lobbying with the current set of Congress members? Are you seeing new possibilities to lobby the current set of Congress members with the right message, with the right messengers as you've been doing? Was I wrong 6 weeks ago? Could we have meaningful interventions with the current set of Congress members before the midterms?
Yes, my friend, you were wrong. Number two,
that's all right. It happens often.
That's why we were talking with Trump with the taco. We can't ignore that if people are watching. I mean, the graphic.
Well, I'm asking if we can save the country. It's a taco issue.
Okay, look, right? I mean, that's a really big taco because Taco Bell tacos are not
a Taco Bell taco.
So, credit to Esquire or whatever, but that's not sized for accuracy. But here's what I'll tell you, and shout out to you and everybody in the Defiance Network, especially for standing up with us at Independent Veterans of America. Here's what I've told people: surrender and wait till November is not enough, because he could invade 3 more countries between now and November. And that is an important circuit breaker, but there are a number that could happen before then that could make us more safe and improve our democracy. And I would just point you to the cabinet secretaries who've gone down, 3 now and counting. You've got Bondi, you've got Kristi Noem, now you've got the labor secretary. Pete Hegseth is on the ropes. Kash Patel could be on the ropes. So I would say that the 5-meter target, the most immediate thing to focus on, in my view, is getting Pete Hegseth out. If you get Pete Hegseth out and you can get moderate Republicans and people like Fetterman, who just is completely lost, to turn on Hegseth and remove Hegseth, you will get someone who is less. I mean, it's hard to imagine anybody who would be worse than Hegseth at this point, right? But even if it was as bad as Hegseth, you would remove their momentum, you'd slow them down, you'd force oversight, right? If you think about it right now, Mark Wayne Mullen, we're not talking about him a lot. Now, you could argue he's below the radar, but Kristi Noem is out. You knocked out their starting pitcher. They've got to bring in a reliever who's got to warm up, who's got to get back in the game. So I would be focusing a lot of attention on Pete Hegseth and Kash Patel and crazy-ass Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who likes to cut dicks off raccoons on the side of the road.
We've covered that far too much on the show. Paul, it's such an interesting... Right? It's such an interesting point.
Let me give you another reason why, right? Let me give you another reason why. You know what?
Go ahead.
You know what Hegseth did today that you probably missed? It just happened in the last 2 hours. He banned the flu vaccine. He says now the flu vaccine is optional in the military because people have religious objections to the flu vaccine. So the acting secretary of culture war, which is what I call him, has got another culture war issue. He's saying that flu shots are optional. You know what's next? Maybe helmets are optional. Maybe flak jackets are optional. If you feel like your freedom is being infringed upon and you want to be able to endanger your own life and the life of those people around you, well, go for it. You don't have to get the flu vaccine. You don't have to wear a condom and you don't have to wear a helmet. You can just do whatever you want and infect everybody around you. And here's the really important point, right? A sicker military is a less strong military, right? Mm-hmm. And if the Iranians said, you know what I want to do? I want to get everybody on the USS Eisenhower to have the flu. We saw this during COVID when ships would get, basically removed.
And warfare forever. Yeah. Through all of history, that's a tactic.
George Washington mandated the smallpox vaccine when he was general. right? Because sickness of your force is weakening of your force. So I think it's just another example of how those things intersect. And if you can remove radical, extreme, disqualified culture warriors, that's a win, right? That gives our democracy a little bit of space and slows them down on their radical march toward taking over the world.
It's such an interesting point on the value of getting rid of these secretaries. Miles and I have chatted about that before. There's this rotating cast of kind of bad guys and incompetent people, and sometimes it's hard to figure out, is there really value there, or is it just another puppet for Trump the puppeteer to kind of manipulate and do his deeds, his evil deeds with? But we also have talked about, Miles, like the value of running out the clock, right? Running out the shot clock on this administration. And the idea that every time you replace one of these people, there's this gearing up process and rewiring process where you burn 6, 8, 10 weeks of functionality from that department. That's really insightful. Thanks for sharing that, Paul.
And there are still some professional people inside these departments who are not political, right? And when you remove more of the political people, then the government servants, the folks who are there independent of administrations, start to take over the machines and have to assume those roles a little bit more. And it can be a bit of a governing effect. And I'll also tell you, Secretary of Defense, as an example, part of why he's so paranoid and jumpy is because he's in an internal war with the Army Secretary, Dan Driscoll, who is much more moderate, much more respected, is deeply concerned about the cleansing of the generals. He's strong on Ukraine. He's a buddy of J.D. Vance. So there's this internal fighting that's happening now between Hegseth and Dan Driscoll. And Hegseth can't fire Driscoll because Trump won't let him, or Trump won't allow him to. So watch that space, because if you did remove Hegseth and replace him with Driscoll, I will tell you straight up, Driscoll is a tremendous improvement for America, for our national security, for like rational, moderate people who don't want to, have a culture war at the Pentagon every day.
Well, I'll say, I mean, we may get the wish, because Donald Trump's cabinet members are dropping like flies. We've seen the labor secretary, we've seen Kristi Noem at DHS. Just as we've been on the air, it's been reported that Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard is being shown the door. She's being told she needs to get out ahead of the midterms. I don't know if that means it's going to be near term or longer term, but they're saying that she is being shown the door. And I've got to imagine that Kash Patel is on the chopping block. We've seen the Attorney General already booted from the administration, and that would suggest that we're probably going to see Pete Hegseth on the way out the door sooner than later. I mean, the thing with Trump is he never sticks with anyone for very long. He grows sick of almost anyone who starts to take away a little bit more of the spotlight than him. I mean, it's the law of gravity in Trump's universe. He's the only thing that floats, and everything else hits the ground around him. So, that would be noteworthy.
Like a big turd in the pool, man. That's what he is. He's a turd in the pool that contaminates everything. But let me say something about Tulsi Gabbard, if I can. I think something to watch is who leaves the administration or is fired and then turns on him. Right? Because Tulsi Gabbard is probably best positioned to leave, drop the Republican Party, have a change of conscience, and all of a sudden be against forever wars again. So as you build the resistance and try to take down Godzilla, right, you got to be looking for people, especially, Miles, you're a great example, right? Like, you were on the inside, and then you had that credibility and that power to be able to hit them when you got outside. Tulsi Gabbard, if they let her go, it's probably one of the dumbest things they do. They'll probably keep her close like they did with Kristi Noem or someone else and keep her in the family like a mob would. But if they cut ties with her completely, I don't think she's going to be as loyal as someone like Hegseth or Kash Patel. But we'll see.
You're right. I suspected with the departure of Joe Kent, one of her deputies who she's aligned with, that we might see Gabbard take the exit and to go be a part of the MAGA resistance, because that is what's happening here, folks. And I haven't heard that term used yet, but this isn't just people with buyer's remorse like Tucker Carlson. They are becoming a MAGA resistance. They are actively pushing back against Donald Trump. They are actively criticizing his policies, and they're getting people, even the person I mentioned earlier, a close, someone quite close to our family, to defect from Donald Trump when we thought none of that was even possible. So these things are having real impact.
They're also they're also doing a CYA drill. They're covering their ass, right?
That's right.
If you're somebody like Tulsi Gabbard, you're like, shit, my stock went way down. I got kicked out of the Democratic Party. I ran for president. Then I got to be, national security advisor. Now I'm up here. Now she's looking around going, maybe I'll get war crimes against me or something, right? But it gives her a second life politically. And I think there's going to be people now who break ranks with MAGA because they see the opportunity for a more moderate side of the Republican Party and independents. I challenged Ro Khanna on my show a couple weeks ago. I said, dude, if you went as an independent, you might get more support than if you stayed in the Democratic Party. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is now talking to him about that, right? If you can prove it's financially viable, that they can still make a living and get financial support, and that's the question. But I think somebody like Ro Khanna and Marjorie Taylor Greene will be an example. Like, is there an opportunity for collaboration, and can we reward defection? Right? Like maybe there's a billionaire out there who say, hey, you know what? You leave the administration, I'll give you $100 million. Then see who takes it. I don't know.
We might not want to start at that amount. That feels like a high starting point.
Yeah, well, no, we can't start at that amount because Paul, it's got to be higher than what they're already stealing through insider trading. So it's got to be in the billions.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
everything's $10 billion.
Sponsoring defection, sponsored by Cal.
I know we have to let you go. I'm going to throw the last question to Xander because you got to scoot out and get to CNN. But Xander, what are we going to pin Paul down on last?
I just want to know how to help him more. I think, Paul, like you're in the middle of such an important moment. I don't say that lightly. Like we are, in general, in one of the most important moments in our country's history, and you are leading veterans at a moment where the war is maybe the most divisive and punitive issue for this authoritarian. Like, how do we help you win? We need you to win. How do we help you win?
Great. You guys have been great in having our back. And I think here's the thing. We got fighters. We need more fuel. Right. And I think we've got an air game and a ground game. My show is very, very important, I think, in trying to compete with Joe Rogan and Ben Shapiro and others. So if folks haven't listened to Independent Americans, check it out. I've been elevating a lot of these voices and focusing on national security. Today, I'm talking to Andrew Yang, who's going to give us an update on the Forward Party that's trying to give people an alternative in different states. And we also got open primaries through in New Mexico, which will be happening in June. It's the first time unaffiliateds and independents can vote, which will be a moderating effect. It'll be much more democratic. So check out my show, Independent Americans. And you guys have been great about supporting our work at Independent Veterans of America. That's the ground game where we're trying to elect independent veterans. And I'll give you a quick update. I'm going to see Dan Osborne tomorrow in New York. He's neck and neck.
You can win.
Yeah, with the billionaire Pete Ricketts. They have him 1 point behind. That could be a fulcrum for independents. Knock out a MAGA Republican. Seth Bodner in Montana is doing well. Todd Achilles in Idaho. They're competitive now, right? And it's not just Democrats, it's independents, and they're all pushing for national security accountability, the end to forever wars, which you guys have been talking about, shutting down these crazy secret ICE prisons. Veterans are kind of like the Avengers. There's a new Avengers movie coming, right? And I'm going to be Professor Xavier up there in the house trying to push out X-Men onto the field to fight Dr. Doom. We got the fighters. We need fuel. Keep it coming. And thank you guys for all the reinforcements.
Badassfighters.org. We're waiting for you to connect the domain to the main site.
I'm sorry. Well, yes, we've
been a little busy.
Well, I'll tell you something. We're going to need volunteers too to help people get on the ballot. Some of these independents are facing a tougher hill to climb just to get ballot access. So we'll need volunteers to help them. And it's also down to school board, local races, not just the big Senate races. We got folks running for mayor and other races as well. And it's going to be really, really important to have just reasonable people who have integrity. Right? The opposite of the shit that you see right now. So for Taco Tuesday, that's what we need.
Thanks,
yes,
Paul.
Indeed. For Taco Tuesday, that's what we need. The incredible Paul Rieckhoff from Independent Veterans of America. Thank you for joining, good sir. And folks will tune in to see you on CNN at what time?
I'm on at 7. We're going to talk about the redistricting in Virginia, which is going to be, we're going to get the results there, which I will just say, is undemocratic whether Republicans do it or Democrats do it. And if you want to see why 45% of Americans are independent and only 27 are Democrats and Republicans, it's because of this this war that's happening between the Republicans and Democrats to like redraw the maps as quickly as possible so they can win. So we'll see. We'll see if the folks in Virginia support this redistricting effort by the Democrats or if they reject it. We'll see.
Well, Paul, I'm not going to tell you where I'm voting because I don't want you to show up, but I'll be voting here in the next 30 minutes.
Is it in the woods again?
I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you where because you're going to try to stop me from voting.
I'll be your bodyguard, man. I told you I will fill in as your bodyguard. Anytime Xander is unavailable, I got your back, man.
Oh, no, I'll take you 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Paul Rieckhoff, great to see you, my friend. We'll see you on CNN soon.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you always. Big shout out to everybody in Defiance World. Thank you for having our back. Keep up the fight.
Paul's the greatest.
So
great to have him on.
He's right where he should be. I feel like Paul is like one of those people. Is like he's right where he should be in society. Like his leadership role, being in front of the mic, he's doing great work.
I did, you may have noticed my eyes were flicking down while we were chatting because I had to do something really important. I texted it to Mercedes on our production chat. She doesn't have to put it up right now, but I felt like it was really important to create just some sort of image to capture the day. I don't know if Mercedes is able to put that in, but
she's nodding yes. I think it might.
Yeah. I just as you know, as Paul was commemorating what day of the week it was, I was like, yeah, I need to be able to do something to celebrate. That's about the longest that I could drag out this introduction.
I don't know if it'll. You're like I'm at my limit. I could fill in some time because I want to say something anyways, and then we can go back to the comedic effect.
Nope.
Oh, there we go.
Too late.
There we go. We
there
got
it.
Oh, that is a good graphic. That's going on the socials. Well done.
Once upon a time, I know we have a lot of AI
Paul doesn't
haters
feel
out
disrespected.
there.
We're both playing with AI.
I get it, but something like this would have taken hours to make. But here we are. Someone needs to take this concept and make it into
this is impossible
a little commercial.
To make before. This is impossible because you would be embarrassed to describe what you want to someone else. So you just would never have this.
Yeah. So you call up a production company. You're like, okay. It's a Taco Bell commercial, but it's Taco Hell and it's Donald Trump and it's Tuesday. And they're like, what? And you're like, listen, I'm paying you. Just make it. Just make the advertisement. What were you going to say? You had a serious thing.
I had a serious thing. It's a tough transition from that to a serious thing. But I'll try to make it work.
I'm like every other lame AI geek in the world right now that's like, wait, let me show you how I can generate an image of the president in Taco Hell.
No worries. I think I just wanted to bring up, I think we talked a lot about bridging and expanding kind of who can see themselves as part of this resistance. I'm sensitive to the fact that, you and I are both white guys. We are not the demographics that have been harmed oftentimes by the decisions of Donald Trump, whether it's women, whether it's immigrants, whether it's minorities, etc. And I know opening your arms to voters who have voted for things like that is more challenging if you're in those groups or in general. It's a hard concept to get your arms around. And I'm so grateful to have spent time with the King family and helping run MLK's Foreign Foundation and spending time in social justice and whatnot because of all that you learn in trying to build coalitions for political victory. Look, if I had been a voter in 92, I would have voted for Clinton. Clinton passed the crime bill, which doubled mass incarceration in America. And so my selection of a president would have directly, and the bill he passed, him and really Biden co-authored it, doubled mass incarceration, pushed millions and millions of Black and brown people through our justice system, which is a torturous process. If I had been alive in 64, I would have voted for Lyndon Johnson, who obviously did a lot of great things domestically, in my opinion, but also launched the Vietnam War. And, eventually led to the unnecessary murder of 2 million plus Vietnamese. And I say all that to say, I think a winning political movement can see past the people that have organized these voters in the past and can know that we are driven by a shared desire for safety and opportunity and hope. And when people aren't feeling that, that can be exploited, and that can be exploited to support some terrible things. But a winning political movement says, I see your needs. I see your needs. I understand your needs, and we can address them over here. And so I just wanted to say that I'm always very sensitive to kind of saying, hey, let bygones be bygones. Let's all get in the big tent. But it is the way to progress. It is the path to progress, and it's a challenging one. That's why we admire people like Martin Luther King Jr., who was able to pass voting rights and civil rights through a message of love and hope. you know, and so he didn't talk about the policies. It was about love and hope, and he believed that a super majority of Americans would that message would resonate with them. And so I just wanted to call that out.
I think that's a great call out. I agree with all of that. I agree with all of that. There's only one point I would take issue with, Xander, which is, when you say that you and I aren't the demographic being affected by Trump policies, I got to disagree with you. I'd be hard pressed for anyone out there
specifically,
I'd be hard pressed for anyone out there to tell me they've more directly experienced Donald Trump's revenge than me. And so Xander's going to give you the love version. I'm going to give you the tough love version. All right. My whole life was destroyed by this guy twice. And if I can get on this program every day and say, bear hug Marjorie Taylor Greene, bear hug Tucker Carlson, bear hug the person who voted for Trump 3 times, if I can say that, these people who wanted to put this guy in power, who wanted to put me in prison, then you damn well better get off your ass and expand this political tent. If I can do it, then you can get off your ass and expand this political tent and keep this guy from winning. If you don't,
I also recommend bear hugging Miles. It's great.
That's right. If you don't,
I bear hug him every time I see him.
I have a solution for you. I said it at the top of this program. If you don't want to win and you want to get the MAGA coalition out of America by just expanding the circle of people who think just like you, then I want you to be prepared to make your little participation ribbon and to pin it on your shirt when Donald Trump gets a 3rd term in the presidency. You could pat yourself on the back for having done shit to actually win. We do not win this thing by staying in our little ideological silos and by saying, trigger warning, someone's going to talk about something I don't like, or we're so snowflakey, we can't bring a former Republican in. If you can't do that, then declare a loss today. But if you can, if you think you can be in a messy, strange, ideologically diverse coalition with people who might even repulse you, but who agree that this man is a wannabe dictator and he has to go and that we've got to restore our country, then we can win this fight. Then we can bring the rule of law back in America. Then we can have very serious, even angry debates with the other side we disagree with, and we'll have kept our country. We'll have kept our country instead of sacrificing it to our own ideological purity. That's what we got to do, folks. Xander's absolutely right. And the best movement leaders in this nation's history knew that. And you all know that too. The people who are watching this right now, the defiant in this country, know that. You all have been instrumental in the past year about taking the things that we just said and operationalizing them. There is a reason right now this country is not still cowering in fear of this man. And it's because you all have broadened the coalition so much that you're now getting the Joe Kents and the Marjorie Taylor Greenes and the Megyn Kellys and the Alex Joneses to join this ship. That is extraordinary. We are trending in the direction of preserving our republic. Let's keep surging that way. Xander, this also, by the way, brings us to our final segment of the day and every day, which is particularly appropriate on this Tuesday. The segment is Who is Joining the Defiance? And today we look to an added benefit of joining the Defiance. It tastes good. We go to one influencer who is called Taco Fiend. I swear we didn't intend this when we picked this example, but it fits today. The influencer is Taco Fiend, whose name is self-explanatory as to what you can expect from his content. However, when the son of a vendor reached out to him in an unusual way, he used his platform to join the Defiance. Here you go.
review every day until we review tacos in every country in the world. Now, I'm only here because the son of the taquero behind me waited for me outside of the gym just to tell me how much his dad and their family needed our help. So he had sent me a DM and some pictures, bro. I'm just going to put it on the screen. Y'all could pause. This happened right behind Sweetwater High, bro. Right in front of this man's home. Here in National City, in our own backyard. These fools could just pull up wherever they want to pull up and take whoever they want to take. This man's not a criminal. He don't got no priors. He don't got a record. He's just trying to spread some love through his tacos. So today we're going to show this man some love. I don't even care how good the food is or not, fool. Everything I make from this video, I will be donating to this man so he can use for whatever he needs, bro. Me dijo tu hijo que ahí trabajas en Din Tai Fung, ¿no? Sí. Y luego aquí después? Sí, aquí. ¿Cuándo tienes tiempo para tu familia, para dormir? Pues hay que darle. Sí. ¿Cuánto ganan los tacos? Están especial ahorita, 3. ¿Y cuánto tengo que pagar para que termines aquí y vayas a pasar tiempo con tu familia? 300, 400. Aquí son 500. Sí.
Nice.
Antes que te
That's
vayas,
cool.
vamos a comer unos tacos juntos.
Sí, sí, claro,
¿Sí?
sí.
Órale pues. Mucho gusto.
Mucho gusto.
Tomamos
una foto.
Ooh, the tortillas too. That's right.
That's cool.
Nice.
That's
That
cool.
was sweet.
I love that one, and pretty damn good for a Taco Tuesday to have that featured. So a big thanks
More of
to our
that.
producer Mercedes on that one. You know, and Xander, I feel like in a way, you know, that clip, this gentleman who's joining the Defiance, that cuts to the core of what you were saying earlier, is that we've got to be able to empathize with people who are not in our situation. There's a whole lot of upper white middle class people who watch this program who don't actually know what that daily fear is like of being picked up by Trump's goons, who aren't living in fear that ICE is literally going to show up and knock on the door, or even that ICE knocking on the door at the end of the block or on the other side of the city is a direct threat that may make you need to run for your life and for your family. But that's happening not just to hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands. It's happening to millions of people in this country. People who came to this country, by the way, because they loved it, because they admired it, because they wanted to make it great. And now they are being hunted. There are so many other people, as you note, Xander, who have been on the receiving end of this revenge presidency, including, by the way, people inside that MAGA movement. Understand that they are now belatedly, I will admit, very belatedly feeling that fear, feeling the fear that they can't feed their families, they can't fuel their cars, they can't see their own future because this man is standing in the way. You can now have empathy for them too, and understand that it's never too late to do the right thing. Let's bring them all into the tent.
Yeah, they were sold a lie. They thought it was addition through subtraction. They'd be safer if some other people were out of the mix, right? And I mean, that's a lie that's as old as time. It's happened time and time again in societies. And it's BS, especially when it comes to America. Our strength is in our diversity. I mean, there's lots of good data on the economic impact of immigrants too. If you're just talking through just like you remove the morality piece and you're just talking through a fiscal lens, immigrants give a lot more than they take from our social systems. And then you think about, you know, I'm talking on like recently arrived immigrants. Then you think about the impact of all the different cultures coming together and all the creation that's taken place in this country because of it. But they were sold a lie. They were feeling unsafe. And a guy who's lied to people his entire life and learned how to be really, really good at it, lied to a bunch of them as well. But like I said, there's huge wins on the horizon. This has expanded the Overton window in American politics. We're considering different types of leaders. We're considering different types of policies than we would have otherwise. There was a lot of rot going in our system beforehand that's been exposed by his exploitation. And hopefully, you know, as we mentioned earlier in this program, we use this moment and that momentum and this newly found organizing muscle. We've talked about this muscle Americans have built. A bunch of people coming to this show all the time to hear what they can do. That doesn't need to end once we get this guy out of here. We need to stay engaged as citizens in the same way we were engaged as, you know, employees or private citizens previously. And if we are, there's a really beautiful future on the other side of that horizon.
There is indeed, my friend. In that vein, let's take a few questions from defiance.org members before we jump. Sunil says, my Hispanic lawn care guy has lost 2 of his siblings to ICE. He is now scared. How can we help them? Where are the church basement shelters for them? Well, look, I'll say one thing, Sunil, already by being a defiance.org member, you are doing things to help. In fact, it's sort of prescient that you asked that question, because tomorrow we are announcing something we are doing related to this subject, because we can't just let it go. Yeah, the Iran war has our attention. Yes, Trump's corruption has our attention, but we cannot forget that there is an effort to sweep up millions of people in this country, including American citizens, and to put them in detention with the Department of Homeland Security under Donald Trump. And so we're going to be talking about that a lot more tomorrow and what we are announcing we are doing. But Sunil, I'd encourage you and others to look at some of the organizations that we have highlighted at defiance.org that go out there and provide pro bono legal services to people in this country who are being targeted by ICE. A number of weeks ago, we highlighted some of these organizations. And if you want to see them, you can just go to defiance.news, our news page, and go to the Action Alerts tab. And you can scroll back and you can see some of the organizations that we have spotlighted that are doing great things to support people. But Xander, there's a lot of groups out there that people can stand behind, and a lot of different things they can do to help protect their neighbors, including Know Your Rights trainings, including that sort of legal aid, and a number of other groups that we have brought into the fold.
Sunil, come tomorrow. You're not going to be disappointed. That's top of mind for us. Top of mind. We're not going to allow some Nazi infrastructure to be built in America. We have tactics I feel really freaking good about. We both feel really good about that we're going to be investing in and scaling. Come tomorrow. Bring your friends tomorrow. We're taking that question head on.
This is also the thing we're going to announce tomorrow, quite frankly, is the type of thing that if you are not someone who's in one of those communities, who feels like you're on the run from the authorities, but you want to help those people, this is one of the types of things that you can do to help, even if you don't live in an immigrant community. Tomorrow, we want to announce something that everyone can be a part of and can be on alert to help out with. So we're excited about that, excited to get that rolling. Federal Limits asks, what do they make of the ICE contracts growing 900% in 2025? Do they believe the growth in ICE contracts is an end run around posse comitatus? Well, I'll tell you, Federal Limits, the real answer around it, unfortunately, is the U.S. Congress. ICE contracts are surging because the Congress, in Donald Trump's so-called big, beautiful bill, gave the agency an extraordinary increase in its budget, tens of billions of dollars for it to spend above and beyond the resources that ICE had before. And so you're seeing a huge surge in ICE contracts because they have more cash to part with, including this $40 billion plan to extend ICE prisons all across the country, the purchasing of warehouses to stash away thousands of people. This, again, we've said many times before, you'll hear us say again tomorrow, is a plan that would make DHS potentially bigger than the federal prison system. You heard that right. DHS might run its own prison system bigger than the federal penitentiary you've come to know throughout history. That is shocking. There's a whole lot of reasons, even beyond immigration, that we don't want that to happen, because we don't want to live in a police state. We don't want to live in a place where the federal government has the ability to lock up millions with the snap of their fingers and send them to places without any court's oversight and approval. That's not okay. We got to do something about that.
I agree.
Love that response. I've got to jump here shortly. We got to wrap the program. But one last thing, Xander, is Erica Jamal McMahon asks a question. And I hope, Erica, you're asking this question because maybe you were inspired today by the program. But you asked, how can you increase your monthly dues?
We're launching a crypto, Erica. Well, yeah. Defiance coin.
I would say that's right. We're launching a crypto defiance coin. I would say
I'm pretty sure I'm not, because they don't call it launching a crypto. I'm pretty sure that's not what the insiders call it.
Yeah.
Sorry, Miles. Go ahead. Make the
No,
pitch.
I was gonna say, if we were doing defiance.org to grift and build a secret business, we'd be doing a terrible job, because we have not made it easy for you to increase your monthly dues. We've only made it easy to sign up and become a part of defiance.org, which is a 501c4 nonprofit organization. So how do you increase your dues? Unfortunately, Erica, because of the back end system that runs our whole operation, the only way to do it is just to log in, cancel your current membership to defiance.org, and just go right back and sign up to the website. We can't control your contributions on the back end. In other words, and that should be good news to you. In fact, I would like everything I sign up for to not have access to my credit card information, right? I would like it all to be encrypted and out of touch. It's the same thing when you sign up as a defiance.org member. We can't increase your monthly contribution for you. Thank goodness. The only thing that our system allows us to do is, if you can't figure out how to cancel your membership, we can cancel your membership for you. But I would just urge you, if you're a defiance.org member and you want to give more to what the organization's doing, and you want to support these Wednesday actions that we announce even more than you already are, just go to the website, defiance.org, go to the very bottom and click Manage My Membership. When you go to that page, it's going to tell you, if you've signed up anytime since November 7th, there'll be a little button that you can click that lets you log in to your defiance.org account. So defiance.org, scroll down, manage my membership, and then you'll find the place where it says, how do I manage my membership dues? And you'll log in with the same email you signed up with. If you forgot your password, that's okay, enter it. And that will allow you to log in, and you can cancel. You can cancel your existing membership dues. I'm not urging people to cancel en masse. What I am urging you to do is, after that, go sign back up at the amount that you are comfortable with. I promise you, we're working on a more elegant way for people to be able to increase their member dues. It's a real tricky thing, for a good reason. When you've got 15,000 paying members and 120,000 supporters, it just so happens that when you change the stuff on the back end, it can change it for everyone when maybe they don't want to change it. So
if you want a easier and more impactful way to contribute more, get a friend to sign up.
There you go.
That's much easier, and it actually has the secondary effect of growing our movement. We can get them involved. We can get them to get a friend to join up. So if you're feeling like that pathway is easier for you, we'd love for you to organize your friends to becoming Defiance members as well.
Last thing I would say, Erica, is join us next week, because we have some special announcements around our 6-month birthday, including special ways that people can contribute more to the club without having to go in and change their membership. If that sounded intimidating to you, the logins, the this or that, don't worry. Next week, we're going to give you additional options to support our various causes. I will just say, Xander, one more time, tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern, the weekly mission brief. Be there to find out what we're doing this week, the real things we're doing this week to combat Donald Trump's abuses of power. And until then, as always, friends, stay loud, stay brave, and stay together. We'll see you tomorrow.